Moving towards our final discussion of the day, briefing. Let's put our hands together for our panelists. I'd like to invite our panelists for the panel discussion, Bringing Concept to Reality, Focus on Technology, Innovation and Sustainability. As a part of our panel discussion, we have with us Nirmal Mangal, Director of Architecture, M. Moser Associates. We welcome you. I'm sure we can put our hands together for all of our panelists. Let's also put our hands together for Rohit Parulekar, Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing, Shanla India. Thank you for partnering with us as well, sir. Pran Mitra, Regional Head, Godrej Locking Solutions and Systems. Thank you for joining us. We have with us Sonali Bhagwati, President, Design Plus Architecture. We'd also like to welcome on stage Lalita Tharani, Co-Founder and Principal Architect, Collaborative Architecture. It's a pleasure to welcome on stage Vibhuti Sachdev, Dean, Sushant School of Art and Architecture, and Srinivas Murthy ji, Architect and Founder, Architect and Design Foundation. And of course, let's also put our hands together for our moderator, Mridhu Bhandari, joining us on stage once again. We'd like to follow the same format where we have...
missed out Mr. Mangal's name, or probably it was called earlier. Please come. Please come on stage.
Mr. Nirmal Mangal joining us on stage. Again, we'll follow it up with a panel discussion, post which we'll take a couple of questions from the audience. The panelists are most welcome to use the cordless mic or a lapel, whatever you prefer.
Keep one mic on that side.
Okay, because the mic for him is not...
We can use the handheld mic. Are there any more lapel mics, or are we using hand mics? Hand mics? All right. I don't have You can use the hand mic between two of you and one for this side. I think both of you. Nobody has. All right. Great.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we have men versus women happening here.
Yeah, he's the lone person.
Yeah, I almost thought of shifting to that side, then I said I don't want to give them all the upper hand. So I'll keep a check on that.
All right. All right, so welcome ladies and gentlemen to another panel discussion as part of the second Economic Times Architecture and Design Summit. And really, in this discussion, we're really going to just be talking about bringing concepts to reality with a special focus on technology, on innovation, and on sustainability. So architects, designers, experts around the world have novel ideas on transforming spaces. So we are really going to be talking about what are some of these ideas, how can technology empower and fuel these ideas, and are these ideas really sustainable in the long run? So to answer all of these questions and much more, I'm joined by a very eminent panel of industry experts here today. And for the benefit of our television viewers, I'm going to be introducing them again one by one. Starting from my extreme right, Mr. Nirmal Mangal, Director of Architecture, M. Moser Associates. Right next to him, Rohit Parulekar, Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing, Schindler India. Pran Mitra on my right, Regional Head, Godrej Locking Solutions and Systems. Sonali Bhagwati, President, Design Plus Architecture. Vibhuti Sachdev, Dean of Sushant School of Art and Architecture. On her left is Lalita Tharani, Co-Founder and Principal Architect, Collaborative Architecture. And on the extreme left, Srinivas Murthy ji, Architect and Founder, Architecture and Design Foundation of India. So before we begin, let's have a huge round of applause and thank them for taking out valuable time for us today. So Sonali, I'm going to really begin with you first, touching upon the innovation bit to start with. You're someone who has designed a lot of innovative structures in India over many years now. Over the last couple of years, in the recent past, how has the definition of innovation really changed in the urban context?
Innovation in the urban context is one issue which is, I think, really, really important today. Because I think there is a lot of talk going about smart cities, etc., etc. I think this is a very broad subject, and it's important to see how this applies to us in our context here. While smart cities can have a lot of definitions and a lot of things that you can do which are all technology oriented, but today we are in a situation where we live in cities where 50% of our cities or more than 50% of our cities are either slums or unauthorized colonies or urban villages. And I think if you want to really make your city into a smart city, you need to address these areas first. The other areas will get addressed because they are all within the realm of private development. But it's these areas that need to be, and technology needs to be adapted in a very innovative manner in order to see that how these areas can benefit and come out of the squalor that they are in. I'll give you a few small examples. Let's look at parking. Now, parking is a big mess over here. Now, technology can really go a long way in parking. When you're designing a new structure, you can do anything. You can adapt any kind of parking solutions. But what happens when you're in an existing situation which have really tight constraints? Technology can really help in terms of parking solutions which are multi-level, which can be inserted into small areas, which can work efficiently. So that is where technology would come in to solve a very it's a problem that we all face every day. In every part of our life, we are facing this problem. So I think technology needs to be brought in. Let's take sewerage and drainage. None of these colonies have any sewerage and drainage. 50% of Delhi has no sewerage and drainage to begin with. So even where there is a little bit of sewerage and drainage, they all drain into the stormwater drains. Now these are wrong things that are happening, and we need to adapt technology. Instead of using very high energy intensive and complicated things, we can use really simple things which people are really doing a lot of research on in order to solve these problems. Use decentralized plants, use smaller systems which can create solutions for smaller areas, you know. So that's where technology comes in. So this is the way I feel technology needs to really be adapted to create and clean up and fix our cities for what it is today. Bring pedestrians back. Today our pedestrian is gone. A smart city, a good city needs pedestrian. How do you do that? You have to clean it up. You have to do a whole lot of technological solutions need to be used in a very innovative way to bring back some of these basic urban values that we have completely lost in today's context.
So we are going to be touching on technology in greater detail over the next half hour. But Srinivas, if I can come to you first. As far as design is concerned, as far as innovative design is concerned, is that the biggest need of the hour as far as Indian smart cities are concerned? I mean, we are planning, according to the government, 100 smart cities over the next couple of years. What's that starting point? You know, at the design level, are we really equipped? Are we visionary enough to develop these?
Okay, so answer your last question first. I think we are, as Indian designers, very much capable of having a vision of our own. And we have demonstrated that in the past very well. For strange reasons, in the couple of decades, 4 or 5 decades in the past, we couldn't demonstrate that again. But I strongly believe that we have the capacity to do that. It's just that somewhere we lack that attitude to stick to a very principled approach towards development. And coming back to the innovation part, I don't think innovation has anything to do with the smart city or any such situation. I think we all need to continue to innovate in order to, because the challenges are changing on a day-to-day basis. We are getting, and typically when you ask that question, that innovation in the urban context, I think it's a very smart way of putting it, because the urban centers are becoming the centers of problem as well. So the lot of innovation is anyway required. But on a larger context, yes, that innovation is part of the design process anyway. So that is what the creative people are all the time innovating. It's just that the set of problems keep changing. So I guess innovation will continue to be an integral part of any kind of development.
Nirmal, your company designs workspaces around the world. You adapt workspaces to a lot of different environments. But tell me, as far as innovation is concerned, what's that one biggest innovation, whether it's the inside-out architecture philosophy that you follow, or any such other design principles that you follow? In the Indian context, what is that one innovative step that is missing at the design level?
Well, let me make a suggestion. Instead of giving you one answer, there are two aspects of innovation. One is what we call as design innovation, which has really nothing to do with whimsical architecture or iconic architecture. It's a different way of looking how to design it, which really affects the three aspects of our life, which is called live, work, play. The second aspect is the innovation in terms of the technology, which we use in building the buildings, in design and construction. These are two aspects of innovation. They work together to create wonderful architecture. What you talked about, the workplace strategy, which we use for all our designs. Workplace strategy is nothing but what we call is problem-seeking methods, in which we really encourage and we really engage with our client to learn what is the design brief. Because in the morning session, Rahul had indicated that most of the time the client do not know what they want. I think he's right. But they have an inkling what do they need. It's just that they do not know how to put it in words. And I think as designers, as architects, as planners, it is our job to get that. In terms of technology, I mean, there are just phenomenally wonderful new products which are out there, which really supports a lot of objectives that we've talked about today, in terms of efficiency, in terms of cost, in terms of looking at our heritage, and certainly in terms of sustainability. So going back to workplace, workplace is nothing but learning from the client, what do they need, and help them understand that it is they who will be defining their challenges. This method has been around for at least 25 plus years, and this is a topic that by itself would take the entire hour, so I do not want to go in that. We also practice what we call as inside-out architecture. And what inside-out architecture means is that doesn't matter what the building type is, we design it for the lowest common denominator. And what that means is that in a workplace, the lowest common denominator is an employee who's working there. He is a workplace, and we design around that. In a housing scenario, the lowest common denominator is the individual who is living in that apartment or house or whatever the case may be. So as we design that, each and every space is designed for its intended use. So we don't try to cram a program, a series of spaces into a whimsical space and really accept that and say, well, the space is fantastic, and so what, some of the spaces do not work inside. So inside-out architecture really is that it's a fair balance of designing both interior and architecture on a concurrent basis.
All right. So Sonali was earlier talking a little bit about technology, and I'd like to touch a little bit upon that. Pran, you're in the business of offering solutions to consumers. Today you're able to offer technology-driven consumer durable solutions, electromechanical locks and whatnot. We are talking of smart cities where technology is going to play a pivotal role for the future. So really, how do you think technology is going to revolutionize the interior design space in the coming years?
Okay. So before I talk about technology, the question that you have asked to me, let me tell you something about innovation first. What is it that we feel about innovation at the House of Godrej? We feel that innovation is a process of converting the latent needs of the consumers into products and services, thereby creating values in their minds. Having just said that, we deal into a product which is very small in nature, but secures everything. And when I say latent need, I mean to say there are some hidden needs which consumers do have, but they are not able to express them. Now, having just said that, now what if there was a lock which would not have any keyhole? So it's a need, but consumers are not able to express it. So this need has been embedded into technology, which means that now we have a lock which has no keyhole in it. And it is through the frequencies that, that are created through these lock codes which open the door. So we are trying to bring about technology into every facet of the product that we deal into. Today we are talking about smart cities. I am talking about smart homes. Smart homes where the lighting, where everything is mechanized through technology. So being the industry leader, we are also working towards it and getting technology to locks as well, which is possibly the smallest product that's used in a home.
So going forward, do you see smart homes really becoming a more sort of a need in the urban context rather than being a luxury, so to speak, as of now?
See, I feel gone are the days when one or two family members won't earn or won't go out for business or job. Today, everybody is leading a busy life. Everybody has to move out. And thereby, there's paucity of time. Everybody wants to make every second of it. So it is the technology which is going to help people to bring about some luxury of time to them. It is through technology only that can happen.
Okay.
So we are definitely very convinced about the fact that technology will bring about a big change in smart homes. And yes, smart homes is the way forward, like smart cities.
Great. So Rohit, you're also sort of in the technology business, providing escalators, elevators all over the world. So tell us a little bit about what's your biggest challenge when it comes to embedding technology at the design of the architecture level.
At Schindler, when we look at innovation or technology, what we are basically thinking about is how it is going to help our customers. How is it going to make his or her life easier when they are planning for the building? And in the process, how is it ultimately going to be more productive for our customers by reducing their costs, reducing the time required without compromising the quality, because we are a Swiss company and never compromise on the quality. So this is the key thing that is underlies whatever we are doing from the innovative front. Just to give you an example, we don't think that innovation is something which has to be always a big ticket innovation. It can be a day-to-day innovation, small incremental innovation, which is built into not only our products but also processes, which helps us respond to our customers faster. Imagine a situation where a lift is stuck in a building and there are people inside. Every second is important, right? The people inside are really tense and they want to come out. We found that many times the call coming to us, our call center, that the lift is stuck, that itself takes quite a few minutes, How can we beat this situation? What we are now looking at is soon bringing into India a kind of a practice where we use with the help of the GSM SIM card of a mobile phone. We put it in our controller so that the moment the lift is stuck, the controller of the lift talks with a Schindler person sitting in a call center. So that much precious time is lost and we don't rely on somebody calling our call center. This is what I think is innovation is about. Another big example, about 20 years back, Schindler came out in the market with something called as a machine roomless elevator, which doesn't require a structure at the top. In India, we came out with this technology about 15 years back. Since then, now this has become a commonplace thing. You will find many machine roomless elevators with no machine room at the top. This is what we truly feel is innovation about. What it is doing for our customers, first of all, for our architects, it gives a better freedom, flexibility to design the building. They don't have to worry about that box projecting on top of the terrace, flat roof line. And for our builders and developers who are our customers, it means saving in time, money, coordination work in building that. This is what is innovation all about for us at Schindler, so that it ultimately helps our customers do it better, faster and at a lesser cost.
Right, so customer satisfaction and creating customer delight is really at the crux of every business today. Lalita, what's your experience when it comes to developers? Do you often get demands for designs that have technology embedded in them right at the vision stage, or does technology come as an afterthought, as a bells and whistles project that once the project is underway, then you're starting to think about what technology can do to make it better?
Well, most often an afterthought, but there are certain developers, considering all of them are clients, whether it's developer or individual client, a developer at the end of the day looks at the bottom line. There are few people who come across and say, give me something different, give me something innovative, give me something which, you know, is far beyond what today is, and I can offer my customers, because at the end of the day, they are not the ones to use the spaces. At the end of the day, they are selling it to other people. So at the end of the day, they should feel that, yes, I want to give something different. I want to give something more beyond my bottom line. So considering all those things, we were fortunate, to give an example, we were fortunate to recently do a project in Bangalore. It's an IT park, where the developer came and told us that, of course, you know, we were probably the third architects to be engaged for the same project. So obviously there was a huge amount of dissatisfaction which was already there. And the brief was, give us something which, you know, which should be different from what we have been offered till now. And since this was an IT park which was a platinum rated LEED certification IT park, obviously, you know, technology played a huge role in that. So considering all those aspects and parameters, we, you know, again, since we are discussing the aspect over here with these parameters being innovation being one of the key points, we decided that we shall give him something which is kind of going to take it a bit beyond than what he's asked for, compared to the brief that was given to us. Luckily, he accepted it, and when we say, okay, concept level, it's accepted. Since we are discussing about concept to reality at the end of the day, well, reality was different. You know, at the time of execution, things change, people change, thoughts change, bottom lines change. Okay, so, but here, yes, of course, I mean, most often than not, I'm sure all the architects would agree that what we plan, design, or conceptualize, probably 60 or 80%, maybe to the max, is executed at site. Never 100%.
That's
so
true of most
projects, whether it's at an urban level, whether it's, you know, at a structure design, or whether it's, so to say, an interior architecture. So considering all these things, of course, you know, innovation and technology needs to meet each other, marry each other, support each other, without which we probably cannot build good projects, and we probably cannot convince the clients really to say yes. And okay, I mean, in terms of the afterthought, as you say, yes, there have been people where we in fact designed a workspace for an energy company. They had all modern, you know, softwares and solutions that they were actually selling, but they themselves were not aware. So we had to educate them to use their own products.
More often than not, if you educate the customer, at least they become open to the idea.
Absolutely. We had to educate them to use their own products in their own workspace to make it as a show center to sell the, you know, sell the thing. Otherwise, you can just go and sell it, talk about it. But at the end of the day, how are you going to convince a client if you, being an energy company, cannot implement it yourself?
Right. Vibhuti, amongst all of us, you're perhaps most in touch with the next generation of architects that's really going to build India. So is there a lot of focus on technology and innovation for architecture students?
Yes, I think technology, I do not actually understand what technology is, because in a rush to kind of adapt newer innovations, we forget that there is a huge resource of indigenous technology that we're ignoring. There are indigenous systems of doing things, bioindicators of telling how deep the water is. You know, there are building skills that the master craftsmen have that have not been worked on, researched or documented even. So what we're trying to do in our school is, I started this last semester, we get in craftsmen from, master craftsmen from places like Jaipur, and they get to teach students directly without any interface. And the students love it, and the craftsman loves it, because we are giving a very limited role to the craftsmen at the moment. We are just using them in conservation projects. They ought to be mainstream technical people. There is a huge resource in India which is completely ignored. And they have skills like Araish, they work in brass, they work in marble, it's handcrafted stuff. And I seriously think this is our last chance to do something about it, because they're not teaching their children the same skills. They're very happy if their children buy a photocopying machine and works there, earns his living, that's it. So we need to kind of really get that back into mainstream architecture, and architects have that kind of social responsibility to do something about it, because these are building skills. And unless we make them get them back into mainstream architectural practice, they are going to just fade away. They're going to disappear. And then we can't, in Europe it's already happened. They don't have this, living tradition anymore. But we do. We can't just museumize it and think, okay, you sit pretty there in a room, we'll come and, praise you once in a while, but we'll just focus on new technology. So I think we are at a point that we need to address this here and now, and architects have to be their patrons. You have to give them projects, you have to make them make door handles, chandeliers for your hotels, whatever. I mean, they make handcrafted things. The second thing which we have been innovating in the curriculum, apart from master craftsmen teaching the students directly, is making our students learn to read and write. Most architects don't have a sense of history, I'm afraid. I'm not talking for everyone, but most architects I talk to have no sense of what Indian history is, what past is. They can't tell styles, they can't tell dates, they can't tell the patrons, politics. So we are generally very poor readers and writers. And that is, why is that important? It is important because the idea that comes in your head as a design idea in the head comes either as an image or a thought, emotion, but you have to be able to express that. And you have to also question it. Why am I thinking this? This is not what the idea was, so what's wrong with this? And you have to be articulated to yourself to question it. And also you have to communicate that idea to your client. So unless one reads and writes and thinks critically, the design doesn't improve. And
that's an interesting point that you make. Srinivas, you also work a lot with students. Do you believe that all of these ideas, the idea of a city, the idea of the responsibility towards the city, of building spaces, needs to come in much earlier in a student's life rather than coming in at graduate level?
What Vibhuti said, I completely agree with her that when we talk about technology related issues, and nowadays I think it has almost become an ingredient in every discussion conference to talk about sustainability, how we are going anti-green and how we need to save the earth. But we don't realize that there is one more very important aspect, is that sustainability also has to do a lot with the socio-cultural context. Most of the time our focus has gone on to the technology front. How much the lifts are able to save electricity, how much the lighting condition is better. But what about the socio-cultural context where you are not using the kind of architectural vocabulary, and by what Vibhuti is saying, that we are not creating those opportunities where these craftsmen can be used in your architecture? Thus, you are depriving them of their livelihood actually. And in the slow process, they are actually changing their professions. We all get to hear about this, suicides being committed by the farmers because, especially the weavers who are going for cotton, and no one wants this cotton anymore because all the mills have come in. I guess we are not realizing that the craftsmen are also changing their profession. At least they are not committing suicides right now. So as she said, that this is the last chance for us to revive. Now, in that sense, the sustainability in the larger sense, whether we are creating smarter cities or better cities or smarter homes, I think we need to understand that these things are as important as the technology issues are. Imagine if I were to become just like an American, Russian or a Frenchman without the background of a cultural or historical background. I mean, what is my identity then? I mean, so this is another important issue which we have been working with most of the students in Architectural Institute, is that when was the last time that India created a great architectural style? Now, where is innovation happening in our thinking, in our education? Is there not a possibility? Why is it that, I mean, though I'm sure many of the architects in the room would agree that we have always had this house divided when it came to, why Le Corbusier was invited to design Chandigarh. But forget about whether he did a good or a bad job of it, but I think it raises a very important issue, is that how are we looking at, as India, at the issue of sustainability? And bringing back the students into it, definitely I think architectural education and our profession is one of those very few ones where the industry integration happens at a much later stage. Unlike MBA or medicine or other courses, here the students are mostly taught to design and produce drawings. They go into the offices, and probably after working for 2 or 3 years in an office, they actually get to go to the site.
So you're saying that maybe industry also needs to play a greater role here,
not only
forward.
industry, I guess the institutes also have to look at their curriculum in a little different way, where issues about sustainability, trying to know about the real hardcore thing, how it is made. Because if you don't know, then you won't think about it and try to make a change about it.
I'm going to direct that to the corporates here. At Schindler or at Godrej, what are the sort of initiatives that you take as far as, design or architecture or, these concepts are concerned? Are you sort of taking some positive steps for students in this sphere? Rohit will.
Thanks. Sure, this is very important. In fact, developing further, Mr. Murthy said, very often the focus is on innovating on the products and the processes, whereas the people aspect is very, very important. We realized this a few years back in a country like India, which is growing very fast, and the demand and the supply has to be therefore proportionate. It's comparatively easier to increase your capacity of the factory and deliver more, but not as easy to have your people with required skills and the quality to be developed over the night, right? It's a challenge. And it needs a lot of commitment and investment and passion. So what we did is that we created 3 state-of-the-art training centers across India, West, South and North. The North is in Noida, which round the clock teaches a person how to install an elevator up to the required quality and safety. It teaches him how to maintain an elevator, how to troubleshoot, how to attend to the callbacks of the elevators. So this is the kind of things which we have been doing. What it ensures is that the products which are sophisticated and delivered at site, at the job site, they are installed by equally capable hands. In the process it is helping us, it is helping the entire industry, and in general it is raising the skill set level of the construction industry.
Right.
So that's one of the initiatives. Another very important thing is going and talking to the students at an early stage. What we are doing this since past few years is through something called as an elevator and escalator safety trust. What we do is very simple. We go to schools and spend some time with the school kids and talk to them only about the safety of use, precautions to be taken while using an elevator. Obviously, because it can be highly unsafe if you don't use it properly. And there are many accidents, including fatal, which have happened. We often hear about it in the newspaper. So we go and talk to these kids about what are the basics they should keep in mind while riding an elevator or an escalator. So these
are there any, at Godrej, are there any innovation initiatives towards, aimed directly at students?
Let me give you the industry perspective here. Just take us back to 1970s and 80s. When one would construct a house, would they be spending time to buy tiles? Would they be spending time to buy electrical switches? Possibly the answer is no. It is through the innovation that those industries have brought themselves up, that today when one constructs a house, they spend real good time to select the CP ware, the sanitary ware, the tiles, the switches. But unfortunately, hardware industry, the industry that I belong to and that I represent here today, has still not come up to a level where people would start thinking to buy wood handles for their house. Not only to add aesthetics to their home, but for the security also. The House of Godrej is making a lot of efforts to bring the industry to a different level altogether. Now, to bring about innovation here as well, we are, we have a slogan which is called a design-led innovation. We are bringing innovation to every design that we are designing. We are bringing the element of ergonomics to that. we are bringing those colors which would embed into the ambience of the house, which would be preferred by the architects, eminent architects like who are on the panel today here. So we are, innovation is something that's part of our lives today at the House of Goodrich.
Great.
And definitely we are engaging, at the House of Goodrich we feel that students are one set of people who have very fresh perspective. So we engage their services to get newer set of designs to bring about fresh perspective to the hardware industry that's much required and much awaited for.
And perhaps now that we're talking of design and we're talking of innovation, perhaps the biggest challenge in the urban context today is that of shrinking spaces. So Sonali, when you are designing a structure, how do you sort of balance functionality with beauty, keeping in mind that the space is constantly shrinking now? You have to offer much more in a much lesser space.
Talking about this, what you're saying in the context, let's say, of a workspace. The entire work culture and the approach to a workspace has completely changed. It's radically changed over the last, let's say, 20 years. Let's say 20, 25 years ago, a workplace was only a workplace where you went, you sat on a desk and you worked and you came home. So it was a very defined, compartmentalized system. Today, there is no line between a home and a workspace in terms of not as a physical space but as a perceptible space. So a workspace needs to be perceived as comfortable and as caregiving as a home space. And that's where the major difference is. That's what is a major thing that has addressed this, and the technology has a huge role to play in this, because it is because of IT alone that this difference has been able to come about. People have the option of working from multiple spaces so that you don't have to really designate space for everyone in an office. You use the diversity factor in order to save space. You use spaces which have multi-functions. You have like a cafeteria which could be used as a town hall, which could be doubling up as a small-time meeting spaces because everything is wired, everything is Wi-Fi. You have everything which has multitasking. So each space gives you not only a desk, it could have multiple users. In fact, in one of the smart offices in the US, which I had seen, they had really gone all the way where nobody had a desk. Everybody just came, pulled up the caddy, and went and sat at a space which was free in a particular zone. It could be, and there was no difference between the CEO, CFO, or a trainee. Everybody had the same desk, everybody had the same environment, and everybody worked in the same way. And you could work in a reception area, you could work in a cafeteria, you could work in a break space.
That also has a lot to do with technology where all your data can be on cloud.
So everything was on cloud, everything. So technology has a huge role to play, and that's the way a whole work environment has changed and has looked at using spaces much more efficiently in order to achieve and take the best out of it.
Right. Nirmal, would you like to add to that? Does a technologically advanced workspace really play a huge role in attracting and retaining talent?
Answer is yes. We are doing work for lots of knowledge-based companies. I don't call them technology companies because they are knowledge-based companies. They may not be in the technology side, they may be in pharmaceutical, they may be in automotive industry, but nevertheless. There was a time that employers really didn't have to fight for top talent, but now they have to fight for top talent. So they, and also this younger group which is coming, which is in defining the generation, it is generation, we've gone through X, Y, and now I think we are at Z. I don't know what would be beyond that. They have very different set of values. Their way of working is different. What attracts them, what motivates them, what inspires them is very different than the worker of even 10 years ago. So how do you cater that? So what Sonali just mentioned, we are already doing it in our offices. Even though, I run the offices, I do not have a private office. I sit in the studio. And that is all across my firm's offices, that we do not have private offices. Everybody sits in the studio, irrespective of their position. Second thing is that we also have people who we call our global experts, who are not there on a regular basis. So we have X number of seats, maybe about 25%, which are open station. These individuals do not have any workplace assigned to them. They just come in, and there are empty lockers that they can put their personal stuff in. And all they need to do is open their laptop, and they are off and running. The workplace has changed. The other thing that we've done is that we've taken a relook at what meeting spaces are. We've reduced the amount of meeting spaces which are needed in an office area, and given more importance to what we call as collaboration spaces, which are spaces for ad hoc meeting, because the work doesn't stop just because you've gotten up, you are getting a cup of coffee. And in today's world, you are exchanging thoughts and ideas with your colleague, with your co-workers. Doesn't matter where you are. So the workplace is extending beyond the boundaries of office. In my own case, for about 3 years, I worked remotely. About 60% of the time I traveled, but 40% of the time I lived at my home, and there was no office of my company within about 1,000 miles. And all these are the workplaces of future, and that's what the new generation wants. And so what we are doing in our workplace is exactly that. The other thing which is changing workplace design is that the younger generation, and I'll give a case of Google, and we are doing quite a bit of work for Google, that their employees drive, the younger generation of employees, they drive how the spaces are designed. They want environmentally sustainable workplaces. They want everything to be well designed to support sustainability. Anyway, I know that the time is running out. I could just...
Yeah, so sustainability is, in fact, it's interesting that you spoke about that, and, people are getting more aware today.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants an environmentally sustainable building in the long run. So, Srinivas, I'm going to come to you with that one. When you're dealing with students, when you're teaching students, are you really, what is the concept of sustainability that we are giving to the next generation?
Okay,
because
so
today a lot of people seem to think that a LEED certification, a green building using some green material while building a structure, that's where it stops.
No, I think in the issue of sustainability or green buildings, both these aspects are equally important, the technology front and the social front, or the cultural context in which we are building. Because I think though we are improving technologies, and we should definitely know about it, students must know about it. Why students? I guess all of us should know, so that, and we should become more conscious about using less and less energy for our own existence. Having said that, I think somewhere why it is relevant and important to talk about socio-cultural context is because do we want to lose our identity? I mean, that's the question I'm trying to ask as designers or even as normal citizen of this country. So would I like to maintain my identity, and in that identity as an Indian who has a particular historical and cultural background, am I able to innovate a new modern style of architecture so that I can go around the world and say that I'm also a world-class architect? Being a modern architect, in order to prove it otherwise in the world, I think I don't need to forget my past, and I have the ability to create a new style of architecture which could give place to my fellow citizens of this country to work with me on that. I don't have to deprive them and make them change their profession. Now, it depends how you look at it. I mean, if there was an argument in the earlier panel that the change is inevitable, so would you allow these changes to happen so people change? So we are also becoming global citizens. We all have started dressing just like earlier, and this whole question of city's identity has changed. I mean, earlier Chennai was known because it was a city of Tamilians, and Delhi was known probably as a Punjabi city, or Mumbai as a Marathi city, because it had a context and it has a belongingness to talk about. But today, I guess like there was an ad of some of their cell phone companies where a Bengali is working in Kerala, lady is working in Kashmir. So we are changing as a society. But I think it's time also to think that would we like to give some importance to this aspect of us as a nation, as an identity, and in that context, should we look at technology which can help us retain that and still move ahead and use the latest technology in our designs. And this is what I think students would also have to be told about. And somewhere if it gets integrated in their education and in their thinking, I think they're going to become smart citizens of tomorrow, so that our past is protected, looked after, and at the same time we have the ability to look forward.
Right. Lalita, do you, while we've spoken about students and, passing on this thought and this legacy of sustainability, so to speak, to students, in the current scenario, do you get demands for designs that are environmentally sustainable?
Well, of course we do, and sustainability is the call of the day and need of the hour.
Are consumers willing to pay a premium for a design
that is another question altogether. These two things are completely a different deal. Yes, of course, so there are some.
So you're saying in theory everyone wants.
Nobody wants to pay for it.
Nobody wants to pay for it.
Exactly. So everyone wants it, but there are few takers who say, yes, I would look at spending more on it. Or, we have all kinds of technology which supports sustainability, such as, air conditioning systems, and there are many, I'm sure all these developers, the companies sitting over here can add to that. But when we as architects or designers do try to implement those in the project, the question is whether, they look at, okay, few years down the lane, I am going to make some sense by using this, but today I'm spending more, so am I ready for it? So that is a big question mark, and that's a gap that needs to be bridged with, enlightening the client. Basically, we have to educate them, we have to push them, we have to push the boundaries. It has to be done by the architects, which is the most important.
I have something to add here.
To a connected thought for sustainability. I think we have to make the architectural profession less elitist. I don't think we have to educate the client. I think we have to provide passive solutions, architectural solutions. It's not about expense. I mean, the way we've done away with the courtyard just, saddens me so much, because you can't make a courtyard house in your city anymore because you have to leave setbacks from the road. So after you've left all the front setback, side setback, all that, you've not left space to make the courtyard. And that is such an important, interesting, time-tested solution that has been available to all of us for so long. And why have we got rid of it? Why do we think, every building, it ought to be mandatory for every building to use solar panels, every building to have, recycle the waste, every building to harvest rainwater. We don't have the choice or the luxury to ignore these things. And in our college, all the thesis students, we insist that they address these issues in all their projects. We ask them, so where's your rain harvesting system? No matter what building you're using, we want to know how much energy is being consumed. And the thing is, we don't have the luxury anymore to say, I'll just do one green building, or this is a sustainable one I've done, and this is the normal one I've done. It's not a theme anymore. It has to be embedded in the practice.
So there needs to be a much more stringent law and much more stringent enforcement as far as sustainability is concerned.
Since we do practice in the metro city, and we do practice in a place like a state like Kerala, and 3-tier and 4-tier cities over there, we do come across all these things. Of course, there are laws and regulations for rainwater harvesting, which we do, of course, while designing, make it as an integral part of the design. But along with that, there are many other aspects. Now, you say the courtyard house. I mean, Kerala is famous for all these kind of this kind of an architecture. We do implement that, even if we have a modern take on on architecture. Doesn't mean that we have to do traditional architecture or a typical Kerala house to build a courtyard house. So we do try to make sure that we integrate nature, which Kerala has in abundance, to make sure that it is a part and parcel of the design, of the concept, of the architecture.
Sorry, I don't misunderstand. I wasn't saying that we replicate traditional design and bring it back.
No, I perfectly understand.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that there are lots of solutions that need not be expensive.
Right.
It could be a design choice rather than a technology choice.
Sure.
No,
So
but
Nalini,
you know,
you
where
wanted to
there
add?
are mega structures and larger developments come into play, what Lalita is saying probably
Right. I mean,
holds
see,
good.
there are different aspects.
Yeah.
Sorry to say.
So
but,
now
yeah.
what happens is that the only way, I mean, one can educate as much as one wants, but the bottom line is money, and money speaks, you know. So the only way, in my opinion, is that you need to have a bylaws or some sort of a mandate that incentivizes a developer to build in. Like, you know, you could give a little extra FAR or whatever. So that means that they have to have incentive to make it green and, you know, bring the sustainability into forefront. I think we mustn't sort of forget that at the bottom of it all, for any development, it is the money that speaks. And we must address that and see to it that we use it correctly.
Right. Nirmal, are there any best practices that we can pick up from around the world as far as, you know, making sustainability economically viable is concerned for the developer community?
We are very fortunate that we are talking about Indian context, because I think that a vast majority of passive systems are really cost-free. It really depends on us to be able to integrate them. And even the active systems, there are many things that can be done for almost little or no cost. When you are approaching something like platinum, yes, there is cost to that. But easily up to the silver level, we've been able to achieve that with literally no cost impact. So what it really is that it puts the burden on designers, on architects to design something which is sustainable. You know, I chuckle at the idea of LEED. Almost 25 years ago, I taught a studio at University of Texas, and the topic of that was energy and architecture. And this was at the time where there was no such thing as LEED or even sustainable design. We've come a long way, but one of the important things is that we've been doing sustainable design in India out of economic necessity way before the rest of the world got onto bandwagon. We've been using regional materials, we've been using recycled product, we've been using so many things. Now that it has become in the mainstream, we can structure how to use them. There are techniques of using that. Even the technology, how you use the technology has a very direct cost bearing. It doesn't have to be expensive in order to be sustainable. If, for example, if you use daylight to light the interior spaces, it is free. Daylight can travel up to 35 feet inside in the interior spaces. So make sure you have enough of windows in order to bring the daylight in. It's free of cost. You don't have to do that. You know, in places where you want to have water heater, solar water heater costs very little. But it gives you hot water throughout the house for literally, you know, no cost, with the cost of small circulating motor. And we have almost 300 days, if not 300, maybe 290 days in a year, which is sun is shining very brightly. So these are the things that we need to look into and how to use them very effectively. One thing, I know we've run out of time, but I do want to address the issue of education. You know, I taught in the US, I have not taught here, and I speak from my personal experience. I just moved to India about a year ago, so a lot of my references are from abroad, because that's where I spent my professional life. One of the things that I have seen, and by the way, I've been going around to various universities to share with the senior class as to what we are looking in architects when we do on-campus recruitment. One of the things that I used to tell my students that I will come to their studio at 10 o'clock in the night, and if I don't see them there, that means they are not working hard enough. And the grade would be severely affected, because architecture is not a 9-to-5 profession. They have to live, sleep.
That's true of most professions today.
Well, there are other professions that you don't have to do that. I tell my staff right now that please do not waste your time in WhatsApp and Facebook. I want them to spend time learning about design industry. That's a big difference between India and Western students.
Right.
They spend enormous amount of time. They invest their own time to really learn about that. I was surprised when I was there.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to butt in there and cut your thoughts short, and maybe we'll have to take this discussion offline. But just to conclude, I'd like final comments from each one of you on that one innovative idea that you think can take India's design and architecture to the next level. And let's keep it extremely brief. One quick idea on, how we can elevate it. Yes, please. Starting with Srinivas.
Okay, so I'm going to give it a completely different take, and we can discuss it later. I think a time has come where Indian architects as real creative geniuses have to be recognized.
Yes. Let's not get into that debate. Yes. It's not an India versus rest of the world.
Once that recognition is established, I think we will prove a point. And it's time that we need to do that. And the real innovation is happening. There are many Indian architects who are doing fantastic work. It's just that we don't get recognized as international architects where some of the other guys.
Yes, we have a couple on the panel here today. So, but my question really was that when it comes to innovation or technology or sustainability, what is that one simple idea that you think we can adopt to take India's design and architecture to the next level?
So I think I've already spoken, so I'll do the last one.
Okay, Lalita.
Okay, I have the mic anyways. Architecture design per se is a far large, it has a far larger span than one idea, one parameter that we can talk about. All these three aspects and many others come together to really make design and architecture worth noticing, relevant, and at par at the global level. And more so, we have to kind of stop being followers. We have to start being leaders in design. We, as the co-panelist over here was saying, that we have to breathe design to be there.
Right. Vibhuti?
Well, I would say please make space for the traditional indigenous knowledge systems to come into the mainstream practice, and architects ought to patronize the master craftsmen. And the other related thing is we need to revise our building bylaws. I mean, we are in serious trouble if we don't.
Yes, we are. I agree.
Sonali?
I think one of the most important things is the restructuring of our urban fabric. The small fragmented plotted fabric that we have today is the biggest undoing of our city and undoing of any design. So unless we go into the amalgamation mode and look at large land parcels which can have larger integrated projects, which then can have a lot of smart technology, whether it is with traditional crafts or XYZ, that's a different issue. But unless you create the platform for good technology and design ideas to be put in, it's never going to change. Because the sum of small parts is not equal to the whole. The whole is a bigger issue, So I think that changing of the urban structure is the crux of changing our Indian design and architecture.
All right. Pran, what's your thought on this?
Well, my concluding comment on the subject would be like this. I have a very strong desire to live in developed India. Having said that, we are one of the 5 most emerging economies of the world. And like China, we are not an aging society. And it's time that we start selling the brand India. And to have done so, it is through the innovation and technology. The marriage of the two is what we shall bring us on the top of the world. I'm sure the eminent architects of the country will do this for us. They will design a better India and a modern India for us. And we, being one of the corporate citizens of the country, we shall definitely contribute towards the success of the country. Thank you.
Rohit?
For us at Schindler, again, the next big innovation idea or innovative product comes from the simple fact that today in India we have a very bad situation when it comes to the electrical power supply. Whereas, as he said a few minutes back, the solar power is available in abundance, right? So why not make use of it? So how about a solar elevator, just like a solar water heater? And this is not really a dream, it's already a reality. We have a product which is a solar elevator, which would run even if there is a power failure and continue to run up and down. You don't have to get stuck into the lift due to power outages and not have an elevator in spite of having an apartment which would cost you millions of rupees. So this is a fact which is already there. The first few elevators have already been installed elsewhere in the globe, and in India we are very soon looking at it by early next year. So that's for us really a typical example of innovation which is driven by the ground reality and how to overcome the challenges of the surroundings.
All right. Nirmal?
I'll make it very short. My suggestion is that there is tremendous scope of using materials, systems and technologies for the passive means of sustainable design. We haven't even scratched the surface. Before we just go and copy West blindly to say that, well, this is what we want to integrate, there is so much more to explore and integrate in our design. If we just do that, we will accomplish majority of the goals. In every design that we do, before we jump on to active means, we go through all the passive means available before we would go into any active means. So my suggestion to fellow architects is that please do not overlook at that. Please explore to the best of your ability. There's wonderful material out there for passive design means, and in the systems and technologies that we use both for design and construction. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a whole diverse panel of, diverse thoughts coming up from the panel. Thank you all very much for joining us here today, and it's been a brilliant 1 hour. And from reconstructing the urban fabric to using solar power to having more innovative technologies really to build the India of the future, that's really the crux of it. So whether it's innovation, whether it's technology, whether it's sustainability, really bringing that concept to reality and executing it in the Indian context perhaps is the key to a better India. Thank you all very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you so very much to all our panelists and to Madhu for moderating this session. Thank you so very much, and may I request Sunita Kodres from Team 80 to please join us on stage and thank each one of our panelists for their comments, and of course we appreciate your presence. Let's put our hands together for each one of them. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sunita. May I request all of you to please join us for a group picture, and we can keep memories alive. Thank you so very much, and once again may I take this opportunity for thanking each one of you present here. Yes, we've finally come to an end of our northern chapter of Summit AND 2014. I'd also like to thank each one of our sponsors, of course Samani Ceramics, our platinum sponsors, Green Lamb Laminates. I'd also like to thank our silver partners, MMR, Prince Piping Systems, along with Schindler, Abloy, Zimtobel and Godrej. Our associate sponsors, Metherex, Cuba, GP Grand Prix and Gunebo. I'd also like to say our thank yous to our magazine partners and our supporting partners, of course our television partners, ET Now, and each one of you. Thank you all for joining us once again.